5 years after divorcing my cheating wife, police showed up at my house, accusing me of fraud I never committed. $86,000 in loans. 7 forged signatures. All bearing my name, but what broke me the most was that the person who had been poisoning me all that time was my own daughter. By the time I discovered the truth, everyone saw me as a criminal. But then I realized it was time to expose the criminal conspiracy. I had to take back everything I'd lost. The evildoers had finally reached their reckoning. I'm incredibly grateful you're here. Before we begin, have you ever trusted someone completely only to discover they were destroying you? Comment below your story might help someone else. Quick note, this is fictional storytelling with deeper meaning worth exploring. Let's get started. 5 years after the divorce, I thought I was finally free. I was wrong. Looking back now, I should have known that 5 years wasn't long enough to escape someone like Carol. You don't spend 27 years with a person and then just walk away clean. The damage lingers. The scars remain. And sometimes the person you left behind isn't done with you yet. But on that February morning, standing in my kitchen with a coffee mug halfway to my lips, I didn't know any of that. I was just Graham Sterling, 60 years old, 2 years into retirement, 5 years divorced, and finally starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, I'd survived the worst of it. My rental house was small. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, drafty windows that let in the Indianapolis winter like an unwelcome guest. I could hear my neighbor's television through the drywall most mornings, some game show with canned laughter that made my own silence feel even heavier. The place wasn't much, but it was mine. Or at least I paid the $750 a month that made it mine. I'd moved here right after the divorce, after Carol got the house we'd built together, the one with the big kitchen and the backyard where Amanda used to play. After the lawyers finished carving up 27 years of marriage into dollar amounts and legal jargon. After I realized I was starting over at 55, with nothing but my pension and a truck that was already 10 years old. 2 years ago, the company offered early retirement. Downsizing, they called it. I called it being put out to pasture at 58, but I took it. Took my pension, $2,880 a month, and tried to build some kind of life out of the wreckage. Most days, I was okay. Not happy exactly, but okay. That morning was different. The knocks came at 7:15, 3 of them. Hard, deliberate, the kind that aren't asking for permission. They're announcing arrival. I set down my coffee mug, black, no sugar, the way I'd been drinking it for 40 years, and walked to the front door. Through the peephole, I could see 2 people on my porch. A woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense haircut. A younger man, maybe 35, standing slightly behind her. Both wore badges clipped to their belts. My stomach tightened. I opened the door. Cold February air rushed in, carrying the smell of coming snow. "Mr. Graham Sterling?" the woman asked. Her voice was professional, neutral, but I caught the edge underneath. She'd done this before, many times. "That's me." She pulled out a badge. "Detective Claire Anderson, Marion County Sheriff's Office. This is Detective Kevin Hughes. We need to ask you some questions about loan applications submitted in your name over the past 3 years." The world tilted slightly. Loan applications, I hadn't applied for any loans. I lived on my pension. I drove a paid-off truck. I didn't even have a credit card anymore. Carol had maxed out the ones we'd had together, and I'd spent 2 years paying them off after the divorce. "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I think there's been a mistake. I haven't applied for any loans." Detective Anderson's expression didn't change. "We have 7 applications to various banks. Total amount approximately $86,400. Your signature is on every single one." The number hit me like a fist to the chest. $86,000. "That's not possible," I said. My hand tightened on the doorframe. My head felt fuzzy, like I'd just woken up from a dream I couldn't quite remember. I haven't. Detective Hughes spoke for the first time. "May we come in, Mr. Sterling?" I stepped back, let them into my small living room. The television was still on from last night. I'd fallen asleep on the couch again, something I'd been doing more and more lately. I couldn't remember the last time I'd slept through the night in my bed. Detective Anderson sat on the edge of my couch. Hughes stood by the door watching me with cop eyes that saw everything. "Mr. Sterling, are you aware that these loan applications were submitted over a period of 3 years?" Anderson asked. "The first one was filed 36 months ago. The most recent was 8 months ago." I shook my head. Everything felt slow, disconnected. "I don't know anything about any loans. I live on my pension, $2,880 a month. That's it. I couldn't get approved for that kind of money even if I wanted to." "That's what concerns us," Anderson said, "because someone got approved 7 times, and that money is gone." I heard movement outside. Through my front window, I could see Mrs. Helen Crawford from next door, standing at her window with her phone pressed to her ear. Across the street, old Eugene Parker was suddenly very interested in checking his mailbox, even though the mail didn't come until noon. The neighborhood was watching, again, just like when Carol had screamed at me in the driveway 5 years ago, loud enough for everyone to hear how I'd ruined her life. Just like when the moving truck came to take away half our furniture, because that's what the divorce decree said was fair. I was the entertainment again. "Mr. Sterling." Detective Anderson's voice pulled me back. "We're going to need you to come down to the station tomorrow afternoon. 2 o'clock. Can you do that?" It wasn't really a question. "Yes," I said. "Of course. Whatever you need." "And Mr. Sterling." Hughes spoke from his position by the door. "Don't leave Indianapolis. We'll need to speak with you again." They left. I watched their unmarked sedan pull away, Mrs. Crawford still on her phone. Eugene still pretending to check his empty mailbox. I closed the door and leaned against it. My hands were shaking. That foggy feeling in my head was getting worse. I'd been feeling it for months now, this disconnected, tired sensation, like I was moving through water. I'd chalked it up to age, to loneliness, to the depression that came from realizing you were 60 years old and utterly alone. But $86,000 in fraudulent loans, that wasn't depression. That was something else. And I knew immediately who was behind it. The name came to me like poison spreading through my veins. Carol, my ex-wife. The woman I'd spent 23 years with. The woman who'd sworn in front of God and family to love me until death. The woman who'd cheated on me with a city councilman and then blamed me for her unhappiness. It had to be her. She was the only person who had access to my personal information. 5 years ago, when we were finalizing the divorce, she'd needed my social security number for the final tax return. I'd given it to her without a second thought. After 27 years of marriage, you don't expect your wife to use that information to destroy you. But Carol wasn't my wife anymore, and I was beginning to realize I'd never really known her at all. The knock came softer this time. 2 taps familiar. Raymond Hayes stood on my porch holding 2 thermoses, steam curling in the cold air. "Saw the unmarked sedan," he said. "Figured you could use real coffee." I let him in. Raymond was 64, built solid from 30 years as an Indiana State Trooper. Retired 2 years before I moved here, but you never really stopped being a cop. He'd helped me haul my life into this rental 5 years ago when everything fell apart. Some people vanish when things go bad. Raymond wasn't one of them. He sat at my kitchen table without asking, poured coffee into 2 mugs. That was Raymond. He didn't wait for permission, just did what needed doing. "Marion County Sheriff," he said. Two detectives, Tuesday morning. Talk. I wrapped my hands around the mug. The warmth helped. They think I took out loans, 7 of them, $86,000. Did you? No. Didn't think so. He sipped his coffee. You've been living on that pension like scripture. I've watched you turn down beer at 4th of July because it wasn't in the budget. They have my signature on every application. Forged then. Raymond leaned forward. Graham, who has access to your personal information, social security number, address history, all of it. Who would know? The name sat on my tongue like poison. Carol. He nodded like he'd been waiting for me to get there. When's the last time she had that information? 5 years ago. The divorce was almost final. We'd been living in separate parts of the house, circling each other like wounded animals. She called about the final tax return, I said slowly. Said she needed my social security number for the paperwork. I gave it to her over the phone. After 27 years of marriage, you don't think your wife will use it to destroy you, Raymond finished. But that's exactly what she's doing. This is Carol. 27 years. We'd married young. Amanda came that same year. We hadn't planned it, but we made it work. For nearly 3 decades, I thought we were solid. I was wrong. She had an affair, I said. Raymond knew this, but I needed to say it. Stephen Palmer, city councilman, 43, married, 2 kids. Family values platform. Raymond snorted. I found out when she left her email open. 18 months of messages, plans to leave me, plans for their future. Every message ended with, I love you. I stared into my coffee. The divorce was brutal. Her lawyer painted me as controlling, emotionally distant. Indiana's no fault, so the affair didn't matter. Just who wanted out. She got the house, Raymond said, and $75,600 from the equity. Judge called it fair half of what we'd built. I laughed without humor. I kept my pension, $2,880 a month, 32 years at the plant, and that's what I get. She got $75,000 and the house, and she still thinks you owe her. She screamed it in the driveway the day the divorce was final, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. Said I'd ruined her life, that she deserved better. I looked down. Maybe she was right. Don't. Raymond's voice was sharp. Don't start that. You worked yourself to the bone for that family. Carol's the one who couldn't see it. I wanted to believe him. But after 5 years alone in this house, it was hard to remember who I'd been. Raymond was watching me with that cop look, now the one that saw past the surface. Graham, how long have you been feeling off, tired, foggy, like you can't think straight? He gestured at the table. You left your coffee pot on this morning. I could smell it burning when I walked up. You don't remember making it, do you? I didn't. I couldn't remember making coffee before the police came. But then again, I didn't remember a lot lately. Conversations with neighbors I'd supposedly had. Bills I'd paid late. A doctor's appointment I'd completely missed. Maybe 18 months, I said. I figured it was just age. 60 years catches up with you. Raymond didn't look convinced. 18 months. That's about when Amanda started visiting more often, isn't it? My daughter. 32 years old nurse at Community Health Network. She'd been distant after the divorce Carol had gotten to her first, filled her head with stories about how I was the villain. But 18 months ago, Amanda had started coming around, bringing me dinner she'd cooked, making sure I was eating, being a good daughter. She visits every couple weeks, I said. Brings food, says she worries about me. Raymond opened his mouth, then closed it. His expression troubled me. like he was putting pieces together that I couldn't see yet. "What?" I asked. Before he could answer, my phone rang. I pulled it out. Amanda's name on the screen. My heart lifted. Maybe she'd heard about the police. Maybe she was calling to check on me. I looked at Raymond. "It's Amanda." "Answer it," he said. I brought the phone to my ear, hope flooding through me. "Honey, I need to talk to you about something." Her voice cut through the phone like ice. "Dad, I already know. Mom called me this morning." I felt Raymond watching me from across the table, but I couldn't look at him. All I could focus on was my daughter's voice, the cold, professional tone she used at the hospital when dealing with difficult patients. The voice that meant she'd already made up her mind. "See, honey, listen," I started. "No, Dad, I'm tired of listening." She sounded exhausted, worn down. "Mom told me everything about how you've been calling her, threatening her, how you showed up at her house last week, and I haven't been to her house." The words came out sharper than I intended. "Amanda, I haven't seen your mother in 5 years. Not since the divorce was finalized. I haven't called her, haven't texted her, haven't driven past her house. Nothing." Silence on the line. For a moment I thought maybe I'd gotten through. That's not what she told me," Amanda said finally. "She was crying, Dad. Really crying. She said you've been harassing her for months, that you blame her for everything that went wrong in the marriage, that you can't let go." Of course Carol was crying. She'd always been able to cry on command. I'd watched her do it with sales clerks, when she wanted a discount with our marriage counselor, when she wanted sympathy with the divorce mediator, when she wanted the house. Tears were her weapon of choice. "Your mother is lying," I said, forcing myself to stay calm. "Amanda, the police were here this morning. Someone took out loans in my name. 7 loans, $86,000. Forged my signature on every single one." "What does that have to do with Mom?" "She's the only person who has my social security number. I gave it to her 5 years ago for our final tax return. She has all my personal information." "So you're accusing Mom of fraud now?" Amanda's voice rose. "Dad, do you hear yourself? First you're harassing her, now you're making wild accusations about loans. This is exactly what she said you'd do. She said you'd try to blame her for your problems." My chest tightened. Carol had prepared for this. She'd gotten to Amanda first, poisoned the well, before I even knew I needed to defend myself. "I'm not blaming her for my problems," I said. "I'm telling you she's committing fraud, using my identity. The police have the applications. They have the signatures. Someone who knew everything about me, my date of birth, my social security number, my employment history, used that information to steal $86,000. Then talk to the police, file a report, but leave Mom out of it." "I can't leave her out of it. She's the one doing this." "You don't know that." Amanda's professional composure cracked. "You don't know anything, Dad. You're just guessing. Just like you guessed Mom was having an affair 5 years ago." "She was having an affair. I saw the emails. And you threw that in her face every chance you got. You made her life hell. She told me how you'd bring it up during every argument, how you'd use it to control her. That's not true." My hand gripped the phone so hard it hurt. "Amanda, your mother rewrote history. I never threw anything in her face. I found out about Stephen Palmer and I left. That's it. I didn't make her life hell. I left." But even as I said it, I could hear how weak it sounded. How easily Carol could twist it into something else. How desperate I must seem calling my daughter to complain about my ex-wife. "I can't do this," Amanda said. Her voice was shaking now. I can't be in the middle of whatever's happening between you two. I have a job. I have a life. I can't spend my days mediating between my divorced parents. There's nothing happening between us, I said desperately. I'm not trying to put you in the middle. I just need you to know that... She filed a restraining order, Dad. The words stopped me cold. What? This morning, after the police left your house, she went straight to the courthouse and filed a restraining order. She's scared of you. She thinks you're going to hurt her. I couldn't breathe. A restraining order. That meant if I tried to contact Carol even to defend myself, I'd be arrested. It meant the police would see it as evidence that I was dangerous, unstable, exactly what Carol wanted them to think. I haven't done anything to her. I managed. Amanda, I swear to God I haven't. Then why did she file it? My daughter's voice was small now, confused. Why would she go through all that if you haven't done anything? Because she's setting me up, I wanted to scream. Because she's making sure no one will believe me when I accuse her of fraud. Because she's been planning this for years, and I was too stupid to see it coming. But I couldn't say any of that. It would just sound like paranoia, like the ravings of an obsessed ex-husband who couldn't let go. I don't know, I said instead. But I'm telling you the truth. I haven't contacted her. I haven't threatened her. I'm not the person she's making me out to be. Silence. I could hear hospital sounds in the background now, the intercom calling for a doctor, the beep of machines. Amanda was at work. I was interrupting her shift to beg her to believe me. I have to go, she said finally. My break's over. Amanda, please. Don't call me about Mom anymore, Dad. Her voice was firm now. Final. And I mean it. Whatever's happening between you two, leave me out of it. I can't. I just can't. The line went dead. I stood there in my kitchen phone pressed to my ear, listening to the empty silence. My daughter, my little girl, the only family I had left. And I'd just lost her. Raymond's hand landed on my shoulder. Heavy, steady. She doesn't know the whole truth yet, he said quietly. Give her time. But I didn't have time. Tomorrow afternoon, I had to face Detective Anderson at the station. Tomorrow I had to convince the police I wasn't a criminal. And now Carol had a restraining order, physical proof that I was dangerous, that I was exactly the kind of person who would commit fraud and then lie about it. Carol had won the first round before I even knew we were fighting. I set the phone down on the table. My hand was shaking. They think I'm guilty, I said. My voice sounded distant, hollow. The police think I'm guilty, and my daughter thinks I'm harassing her mother, and tomorrow I have to go to that station and try to prove I'm not lying when I have no proof, no evidence. Nothing except my word against Carol's. Raymond squeezed my shoulder. Then we better start building that evidence. The Marion County Sheriff's Office smelled like burnt coffee and cheap disinfectant. Detective Anderson's office was on the 3rd floor, a windowless room with fluorescent lights that made everything look harsh and washed out. I'd been sitting in the waiting area for 20 minutes before she called me in, watching deputies move past with that cop walk, purposeful, alert, like they were always ready for something to go wrong. When Anderson finally opened her door, she didn't smile, just gestured me inside with a slight nod. Mr. Sterling, thanks for coming in. As if I'd had a choice. Her office was small, cluttered with file boxes and a computer that looked like it was from the 90s, but what caught my attention were the papers spread across her desk. Loan applications. 7 of them. My name printed at the top of each one. Have a seat, Anderson said. I sat. The chair was metal and uncomfortable, the kind designed to make you want to leave. Detective Hughes stood by the door again, same as yesterday. Silent observer. probably reading my body language for signs of guilt. Anderson slid the first application across the desk. Take a look at this signature. Tell me what you see. I picked up the paper. There was my name, Graham Raymond Sterling, signed at the bottom in blue ink. The handwriting was close. Very close. The G started with the same upward stroke I'd been using for 40 years. The R had that slight hesitation in the middle where I'd broken my right hand in high school and never quite gotten the smoothness back. But it was wrong. The G, I said, pointing. See this loop here? I don't make that loop. My G's are more angular, and the slant, I tilted the paper. This leans too far right. I'm left-handed. My writing leans left. Anderson was watching me carefully. So you're saying it's a forgery? It has to be. A very good forgery. Yes. She pulled out another application. Look at this one. Same signature, different bank. And this one. And this one. She spread them out like playing cards. 7 signatures, all supposedly mine. All just slightly wrong. Someone studied my handwriting, I said. My mouth was dry. Someone who had access to documents I'd signed. Someone who knew me well enough to get the basic patterns right. Someone like your ex-wife. There it was. The accusation I'd been expecting since yesterday. Carol has had access to my personal documents for 23 years, I said carefully. Tax returns, mortgage papers, insurance forms. She would know how I sign my name. Mr. Sterling, let me lay out what I'm seeing here. Anderson leaned back in her chair. We have 7 loan applications submitted over a 3-year period. Total amount $86,400. Your signature on every single application. Your social security number, your date of birth, your employment history, all accurate. These aren't random forgeries. This is someone with detailed, intimate knowledge of your life. That's why I think, let me finish. Her voice was firm, but not unkind. This morning, your ex-wife filed a restraining order against you. Claims you've been harassing her, threatening her. She says you can't accept that the marriage is over. My stomach dropped. That's not true. She has phone records showing multiple calls from your number over the past 6 months. I haven't called her. Not once. Then someone's spoofing your number, which conveniently is exactly what you'd say if you were lying. Anderson folded her hands on the desk. Mr. Sterling, here's what this looks like to me. A divorced couple, both angry, both hurting. Maybe you two cooked up a scheme together. Take out some loans, split the money, then one of you claims fraud and points the finger at the other. Classic con. I would never, or maybe, she continued, you took out the loans yourself, spent the money, and now you're trying to frame your ex-wife before we catch on. The restraining order certainly makes that theory more plausible. Heat flooded my face. I live on a pension, $2,880 a month. That's it. No credit cards, no savings, no hidden bank accounts. I drive a 15-year-old truck that's paid off. If I had $86,000, don't you think I'd be living better than this? Anderson didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out more papers. Bank statements. These are from the accounts tied to the fraudulent loans, she said. Want to see how the money was spent? She slid the statements across. I scanned the charges. Premium spa package at the Conrad Indianapolis, $2,400. Shopping at Nordstrom, $3,800 over 3 visits. Dinner at St. Elmo Steakhouse, $470 for 2 people. A weekend at the West Baden Springs Hotel, $1,900. Someone's living very well on this money, Anderson said. Someone who likes expensive things. Someone who's making up for lost time, maybe. Living the life they couldn't afford during a long, unhappy marriage. I've never been to any of these places. My voice came out hoarse. I don't even know where West Baden Springs is. It's a resort, 2 hours south. Beautiful place, romantic. Check my credit cards. Check my bank statements. I can prove I wasn't at these places on these dates. Or you used cash. Detective Hughes spoke up from his position by the door. Withdrawals from the loan money. Untraceable. Then check the security cameras at these places. I wasn't there. Anderson sighed. Mr. Sterling, we'll do our due diligence. But right now what I have is 7 forged loan applications in your name spending patterns that suggest someone with expensive tastes and an ex-wife who's scared enough of you to file a restraining order. She stood. I need you to stay in Indianapolis. Don't leave the county. We'll be in touch as the investigation progresses. That's it. I stood too, my legs unsteady. I come here, I tell you the truth. I offer to prove where I was, and you're not going to do anything. We're investigating Mr. Sterling. But I have to tell you, this doesn't look good for you. The room tilted slightly. I put my hand on the desk to steady myself. That foggy feeling was back worse than before, like I was underwater trying to think through mud. Are you all right? Anderson asked. She sounded far away. Fine. Just tired. When's the last time you ate? I couldn't remember. Yesterday. This morning time was getting slippery lately. I'm fine, I repeated. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't press it. Just walked me to the door. Take care of yourself, Mr. Sterling. And remember, don't leave Indianapolis. I walked down the hallway, down the stairs, through the lobby with its metal detectors and bulletproof glass. My feet felt like they were made of lead. By the time I reached the parking lot, I was exhausted. Just the walk from her office to my truck had drained me completely. Raymond was leaning against his car, arms crossed, waiting. He took one look at my face, and I saw his expression shift. They don't believe you, he said. I shook my head. No, they don't. That evening, I sat alone in my small rental house, staring at old photographs. The place was mine, 2 bedrooms, thin walls that let me hear Mrs. Crawford's television through the plaster, but mine. After the divorce, Raymond had helped me move in, and for 5 years, these walls had been my refuge. Tonight, they felt like a prison. I'd pulled the photo album from the closet, something I rarely did anymore. The leather cover was worn at the edges, the pages yellowed. Amanda as a baby, her tiny fist wrapped around my finger. Amanda at 6, missing her 2 front teeth, grinning at the camera. Carol younger, then her smile genuine, her eyes bright. Our wedding photo. I traced the edge of it with my thumb. We'd been so young. Carol in white, me in my only suit, both of us believing we had forever. The memory hit me hard, our 15th anniversary. 15 years. We'd driven out to Brown County State Park, just the 2 of us. Amanda had been staying with Carol's mother for the weekend. We'd walked through the autumn leaves, the air crisp and perfect, and Carol had stopped on a wooden bridge overlooking a valley. You know what I love about us, she'd said, taking my hand. I'd waited, watching her face glow in the afternoon light. I love that we're still here, she'd continued. After everything, the money troubles, the fights, the stress of raising Amanda, we're still here. She'd squeezed my hand tighter. I'll love you until we're old and gray, Graham Sterling, until death do us part. I'd believed her, absolutely. Now, sitting in the dim light of my rental house, I wondered how that woman, the one who'd promised forever, had become someone who could destroy me so completely. But there was another memory, older, deeper. 33 years ago. I'd been 27 working a double shift at the chemical plant, exhausted and ready to go home. The intersection at State Road 37 and Man Road. I'd had the green light. Then I'd seen it, a sedan running the red, swerving out of control. It had clipped a truck, spun wildly, and slammed into the guardrail. Sparks flew. Smoke began to rise from the hood. I'd pulled over without thinking, running toward the wreckage. The driver was slumped over the wheel. A woman, mid-20s, blood on her forehead. The car's front end was crumpled, the engine hissing. I'd smelled gasoline. "Ma'am." I'd shouted, yanking on the door. It wouldn't budge. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" She'd stirred, groaning. The smoke had gotten thicker. Flames licked out from under the hood. Someone behind me had screamed, "Get away from there, it's gonna blow!" But I'd kept pulling, bracing my foot against the frame, and finally the door had given way with a screech of metal. I'd grabbed her under the arms and dragged her out, stumbling backward, just as the fire spread. We'd collapsed on the grass, 20 feet away. I'd been holding her, making sure she was breathing, when the car exploded. Later at the hospital, after they'd stitched her forehead and checked her for a concussion, she'd looked at me with those bright eyes, the same eyes that had once held so much warmth. "You saved my life," she'd whispered. "I'll never forget this. I owe you everything." Her name was Carol Bennett. I closed the album, my hands shaking. How does someone go from that, from owing you everything, to stealing your identity, forging your name on loan applications, and trying to destroy your life? A knock at the door pulled me from the spiral of my thoughts. "Raymond." "Come in," I called, too tired to stand. He stepped inside, his face grave. He didn't sit. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at me like he was about to deliver bad news. "Graham," he said slowly, "we need to talk about your symptoms." I frowned. What symptoms?" "The ones you've been brushing off for over a year." He ticked them off on his fingers. "Brain fog, fatigue, forgetting things, confusion when you were talking to the detectives yesterday. You told me yourself you felt off for months. I'm 60, Raymond. People my age get tired. Not like this." His voice was firm now, the way it used to be when he was a state trooper interrogating someone. "When did it start exactly?" I hesitated, thinking back. "I don't know. Maybe 18 months ago. It's been gradual." Raymond's jaw tightened. 18 months. That's when Amanda started visiting you more often, isn't it? The words hung in the air like a slap. "No." I stood up, my pulse quickening. "Raymond, no. Amanda would never. I'm a cop, Graham." His tone was gentle but unyielding. "I've seen this before. Someone's been drugging you." "That's insane." "Is it?" He stepped closer. "Think about it. The confusion, the memory problems, the exhaustion. Those aren't just age, Graham. Those are symptoms of sedatives, long-term, low-dose sedatives." My legs felt weak. I sank back onto the couch. "Amanda brought you food," Raymond continued. "Casseroles, coffee. She'd stop by 2-3 times a month. Always something homemade. Always something she insisted you eat right away." "She's my daughter," I whispered. "She loves me. I'm not saying she doesn't." Raymond's voice softened. But Carol's manipulating her. You know that, right? If Carol got to Amanda, convinced her you were the enemy, made her think she was helping her mother." "Stop." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Just stop." Raymond crouched in front of me, meeting my eyes. "Tomorrow morning. We're going to your doctor. We're getting a blood test. No arguments." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that my daughter would never poison me, that this whole nightmare had some other explanation. But deep down in the part of my mind that wasn't clouded by exhaustion and disbelief, I knew he was right. "Okay," I said quietly. Raymond nodded, standing. "Get some rest tonight. We'll figure this out." Thursday morning, Raymond drove me to the clinic. Neither of us spoke much on the way. What was there to say? We both knew what we were looking for, we just didn't want to admit it out loud. The clinic was part of Community Health Network, a low brick building near the interstate. Raymond parked and we walked in together. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and old magazines. I signed in at the front desk, my hand shaking slightly as I wrote my name. "Mr. Sterling." A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. "Follow me, please." Raymond stood to come with me, but I shook my head. "I'm okay." He nodded, sitting back down. "I'll be right here." The exam room was small and sterile, fluorescent lights humming overhead. The nurse, her name tag said Karen, gestured to the chair. "We're doing a full toxicology screen," she said, wrapping the tourniquet around my arm. "Dr. Morrison ordered it. Should have results in 24 to 48 hours. I watched the needle slide into my vein, the dark red blood filling the vial. 3 vials. Then 4. "Is that a lot?" I asked. It's thorough," Karen said. She didn't smile. "We're testing for a range of substances, sedatives, opioids, anything that could explain your symptoms." When she was done, she pressed a cotton ball to my arm and taped it down. "You'll get a call when the results are in. Try to stay calm." Stay calm. Right. Raymond drove me home. I thanked him, promised I'd call when I heard something, and went inside. The house felt emptier than usual. I couldn't eat. I made a sandwich around noon, stared at it for 20 minutes, and threw it away. I couldn't sleep either. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Amanda wouldn't do this. She's my daughter. She loves me. But the visits, she'd started coming by more often about 18 months ago. I'd thought it was sweet, my daughter checking in on her aging father, making sure I was okay after the divorce. "Dad, I made you dinner," she'd say, handing me a casserole. "You need to eat more. You're losing weight." "Dad, I made coffee. Drink it while it's hot." She'd sit with me, watch me eat, watch me drink. And every time she'd smile, that same worried smile. "You look tired, Dad. Are you sleeping okay?" I'd thought she was being caring. Now, lying in the dark, I wondered if she'd been checking to make sure the drugs were working. Friday morning, the phone rang at 8:47 a.m. "Dr. Morrison." "Mr. Sterling," he said, his voice grave. "You need to come in immediately." Raymond picked me up 20 minutes later. We didn't talk on the drive. I think we both knew. Dr. Morrison met us in his office, not an exam room. That was a bad sign. He was in his late 50s, gray-haired, with the kind of calm, bedside manner that made you trust him. But today his expression was grim. "Sit down, Mr. Sterling." I sat. Raymond stood behind me, his hand on the back of my chair. "Doctor." Morrison opened a folder, pulled out a sheet of paper covered in numbers and medical terms I didn't understand. "Mr. Sterling," he said slowly, "your blood test came back positive for benzodiazepines." I blinked. "What's that?" "Sedatives, tranquilizers. They're prescription medications used to treat anxiety, insomnia seizures." "But you're not prescribed any of these, correct?" "No." "The levels in your system are extremely high." He leaned forward, his tone more urgent now. "These levels suggest consistent, repeated dosing over an extended period. Months, possibly longer." My chest tightened. "What are you saying?" "Doctor, Morrison looked me in the eye. Someone has been drugging you, Mr. Sterling. This wasn't accidental. This was deliberate. The room spun. Raymond's hand tightened on my shoulder. How long? He asked. Based on these levels, I'd estimate 6 to 18 months of regular exposure. 18 months. That was when Amanda started visiting more often. Amanda at my door, casserole in hand, smiling. Amanda in my kitchen making coffee, humming to herself. Amanda watching me eat, her face full of concern. You look so tired, Dad. Amanda hugging me goodbye at the door. I love you, Dad. The realization hit me like a freight train. My daughter had been poisoning me for 18 months. Morrison was still talking something about how benzodiazepines can cause memory problems, confusion, fatigue, exactly the symptoms I'd been experiencing, but I couldn't hear him anymore. My ears were ringing. My daughter. My little girl who I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd walked down the aisle at her high school graduation, who'd cried on my shoulder after her first breakup. She'd been putting drugs in my food, in my coffee. While I sat there trusting her, loving her, she'd been slowly destroying me from the inside out. Mr. Sterling, doctor, Morrison's voice cut through the fog. Are you okay? I wasn't. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the armrests to steady them. Raymond helped me to the car. I sat in the passenger seat staring straight ahead, my mind blank, except for one thought looping over and over: how could she know? Not how could she. I already knew how. Carol had manipulated her. Carol had gotten to her first, convinced her I was the enemy, made her think she was helping. The question wasn't how. The question was why, and there was only one way to find out. I pulled out my phone. My hands were still shaking as I scrolled to Amanda's name and hit call. It rang 3 times. Dad? Her voice was cautious, wary. She knew something was wrong. We need to talk, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Tonight. At my place. This isn't negotiable. There was a long pause. Dad, I don't think. Tonight, I repeated. 7 o'clock. Be there. I hung up before she could argue. If you've made it this far, you understand how devastating this moment is. Leave a comment. Sharing your reaction, would you confront your daughter immediately or gather more evidence first? Fair warning, the next part contains fictionalized details. You're welcome to step away if you prefer. That evening, Friday evening, Amanda arrived at my house at 7:14 p.m. She was late, 14 minutes late. She'd probably sat in her car outside building up the courage to knock. When I opened the door, she looked terrified. I didn't say a word. I just stepped aside and let her in. She walked past me into the living room, her hands trembling. I closed the door behind her and followed. On the kitchen table, I'd left 2 things: the blood test results and a pill bottle. Empty. One of the bottles I'd found in my trash months ago and never thought twice about. Amanda saw them immediately. Her face went white. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, I spoke. My voice was calm. Too calm. Benzodiazepines. That's what the doctor found in my blood. Amanda didn't move, didn't look at me. You poisoned me. It wasn't a question, it was a statement of fact. Amanda crumbled. She didn't try to deny it. She didn't try to explain. She just collapsed, her knees buckled, and she sank to the floor, tears already streaming down her face. Dad, I'm so sorry. How long? I cut her off. She couldn't answer at first. She was sobbing too hard, her whole body shaking. How long? 18 months, she choked out. Since since Mom asked me to. I stood there staring down at her. My daughter, 32 years old, kneeling on my floor, crying like a child. "Tell me everything," I said. And she did. It started 2 years ago. Gambling. Amanda had always been careful with money, or so I'd thought. But after the divorce, after Carol convinced her I was the villain, Amanda spiraled. She'd started going to casinos. First just for fun, then more often, then every weekend. Within a year, she was in debt. $50,000. It wasn't just the casinos. Amanda whispered, her voice barely audible. It was online poker, sports betting. I couldn't stop. I kept thinking I'd win it back, but I just kept losing. She'd borrowed from friends, then from payday loan places, then when those ran out from loan sharks. They threatened me, Dad. They said if I didn't pay, she couldn't finish. Carol had found out. How Amanda didn't know. But Carol had shown up one day, sat Amanda down and made an offer. Mom said she'd pay off the debt. All of it. But I had to help her first. Help her how? Amanda wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. At first it was just signing papers. She said you'd stolen money from her in the divorce, that she was just getting back what was hers. I believed her. I signed a few loan documents as a witness. I thought it was, I don't know. I thought it was legal. And then she asked for more. Amanda's voice broke. She gave me a bottle of pills. She said, "Give your father one of these every time you visit. Mix it in his food, in his coffee. Just enough to keep him confused. Just enough so he can't fight back." I felt my chest tighten. "And you did it." I tried to say no. Amanda was crying again, harder now. I told her I couldn't, but she said I was already in too deep. She said I'd signed documents that if I didn't help her, she'd go to the police and tell them I was involved from the start. She said I'd go to prison. "So you kept doing it." Every time I came here, Amanda sobbed. "I hated myself. Every time I put those pills in your food, every time I watched you eat, I wanted to die. But I didn't know how to stop. I was so scared, Dad. I was so scared." She looked up at me, her face a mess of tears and snot and desperation. "I poisoned my own father," she whispered. "What kind of person does that—" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just stood there staring at her. This was my little girl, the one I'd taught to ride a bike, the one I'd stayed up with all night when she had nightmares, the one who used to call me every Sunday just to talk, and she'd been drugging me for 18 months. The silence stretched on. Amanda buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Finally, I spoke. My voice was cold, colder than I'd ever heard it. If you want any chance of redemption," I said, "you'll help me take her down." Amanda looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "You're going to go back to your mother," I continued. "You're going to pretend like nothing's changed. You're going to keep helping her, or at least make her think you're helping her. Dad. And you're going to record everything, every conversation, every text message, every piece of evidence you can get. You're going to bring it all to me." Amanda stared at me, frozen. "This is your only way out, Amanda." Amanda looked at me through her tears, mascara streaking her face. "I'll do it," she whispered. "I'll do anything. Dad, please, someday. Can you forgive me?" I didn't answer. Forgiveness wasn't something I had right now. "Here's what you're going to do," I said. "Keep visiting your mother. Act normal. Like tonight never happened." Amanda nodded, wiping her face. Every time you're at her house, record the conversations. Use your phone in your pocket. I don't care if the audio's bad. Just get it. Take pictures of any documents, bank statements, loan applications, anything with my name. Text them to me immediately. What if she catches me? She won't. Just be careful. Dad, if she finds out. Amanda's voice cracked. She'll destroy me. She'll tell the loan sharks where I am. Then don't let her find out. I leaned forward. Yeah, when this is over, when Carol's arrested, I'll help you with the debt. We'll figure it out together. But right now, the only way forward is through. Understand? She nodded. Come here. Amanda crossed the room and threw her arms around me. I held myself stiff, then slowly put one arm around her shoulders. Just one. You're still my daughter, I said quietly. But Amanda, I pulled back to look her in the eye. If you betray me again, we're done. Forever. No second chances. Say it. If I betray you again, we're done forever. Good. Now go home. Tomorrow call your mother. Tell her I'm falling apart. Tell her whatever she wants to hear. Amanda picked up her purse. At the door, she turned back. I love you, Dad. I didn't say it back. She left. The next 10 days were hell. Day 2. The Indianapolis Star ran the story. Retired engineer under investigation for loan fraud, $86,400 in question. My name, my face. Mrs. Crawford stopped making eye contact. Eugene Parker crossed the street to avoid me. Day 3. A sheriff's deputy delivered a restraining order. Carol claimed I'd been harassing her, threatening her safety. I was to stay 500 feet away. No contact. Any violation meant immediate arrest. Day 4. The pension board suspended my payments. $2,880 a month. Gone. I had $473 in my checking account. Day 5. The bank called about a truck loan. $21,600 against my F-150. 3 years old, 6 months delinquent. They were starting repossession. I had 10 days. I didn't take out any loan, I said. It's paid off. Your signature's on file, sir. The title was collateral. They were taking my truck, the only thing I owned. Day 6. My birthday. I woke up and stared at the ceiling. 61 years old. Alone. No job. No money. No car in 10 days. Under investigation. Poisoned by my own daughter. The phone didn't ring. No cards. Nobody remembered. I made coffee, sat at the table. The house was silent except for Mrs. Crawford's TV through the wall. I remembered my 55th birthday. Carol had made chocolate cake. Amanda called from the hospital to sing Happy Birthday off-key. We'd laughed. One of the last good days. Now I sat alone in a house that wasn't mine, drinking coffee I could barely afford. At 8 p.m., someone knocked. Raymond. He held a store-bought cake and a single candle. Kroger brand white frosting with blue Happy Birthday piping. Figured you might need this, he said. My throat closed up. Raymond came in, set the cake down, stuck the candle in the center, lit it. Make a wish. I looked at the tiny flame. The cheap cake. My only friend standing in my kitchen because nobody else remembered. And I broke. I put my face in my hands and cried. Hard, ugly sobs. All the fear and anger poured out, and I couldn't stop. Raymond put his hand on my shoulder and let me fall apart. When I finally got control, I wiped my face. I have nothing left, Raymond. No money, no pension. They're taking my truck. My daughter poisoned me. Everyone believes Carol. I have nothing. You have me, Raymond said, and we're going to win this. He pulled out his laptop, set it on the table, opened it, because I found something about Stephen Palmer. I looked at the screen. The birthday cake sat forgotten between us, the candle burning down, wax pooling around the wick. Raymond turned the laptop toward me. Stephen Palmer, city councilman, 43 years old, married, 2 kids, runs every campaign on family values and integrity. I leaned closer to read the screen. Public salary, $65,000 a year. Raymond continued. His wife doesn't work. 2 kids in private school, that's $25,000 annually. Mortgage on their house in Carmel is $2,800 a month. I did the math in my head. After taxes, housing, and school, there couldn't be much left. The numbers don't add up, Raymond said. Look at this. He pulled up another document. Property records. A lake house at Geist Reservoir purchased 2.5 years ago. The price made my stomach drop. $612,000. Paid in cash. No mortgage. Jesus, I whispered. Yeah. Raymond scrolled down. Purchased under Palmer's name. Deeds public record. No loans, no financing. He walked in with over $500,000 in cash and bought it outright. I stared at the screen. 2.5 years ago, right when the fraudulent loan applications started appearing in my name. That's Carol's money, I said. That's where the $86,000 went. Into this house. Into Stephen Palmer's hands. Not all of it. I checked the math. 7 loans, $86,000 total. But this house cost $612,000. So there are more loans we don't know about yet. Raymond nodded grimly. A lot more. This is bigger than we thought. My phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. Text message. I picked it up. How does it feel, Graham? Losing everything, you destroyed my life for 27 years. Now you know how it feels. Stephen treats me better in 1 day than you treated me in 2 decades. You deserve this. My hands started shaking. I showed Raymond. He pulled out his own phone, took a picture of the screen. Don't respond. Don't engage. But save that. She just confessed to intent. Another buzz, this time from Amanda. Dad, I have something. It's big. Audio file attached. I tapped the file. Waited for it to load. Raymond leaned in close. Carol's voice came through the speaker clear as day. Stephen's been helping me invest the loan money. We're buying properties. Graham will never figure it out. And even if he does, who's going to believe him? With that restraining order, he looks like a crazy ex-husband who can't let go. Another voice in the background. Male. Younger. What about Amanda? Does she suspect anything? Amanda does what I tell her. She's in too deep to back out now. I made sure of that. The recording cut off. Raymond and I sat in silence, staring at the phone. That's her, I finally said. That's Carol admitting everything. The loans, the properties, manipulating Amanda. And Stephen Palmer, Raymond added. He's not just her boyfriend, he's her business partner. They've been doing this together. I played the recording again, Carol's voice so casual, so confident. Graham will never figure it out. Who's going to believe him? She'd been so certain, so sure that she'd destroyed me completely, that nobody would ever take my word over hers. But she'd made a mistake. She'd talked, and Amanda had recorded it. How many properties do you think they bought? I asked. Raymond was already typing on his laptop. Give me a minute. If they used his name, it'll be in the public records. I waited, my heart pounding. The birthday candle had finally burned out, leaving a pool of wax on the cake. I pushed it aside. Raymond's fingers flew across the keyboard. Search. Click. Search again. Got something, he said. Another property. Purchased 18 months ago. Brownsburg. 235,000. Also cash. Jesus Christ. Wait. There's more. He kept scrolling. Anderson, Indiana. Rental property. 320,000. Also cash. Purchased 2 years ago. I did the math. 612,000. 235,000. 320,000. That was over $1 million in real estate. All purchased in cash. All within the last 2.5 years. How much did they steal? I whispered. I don't know yet, but it's a lot more than 86,000. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Carol. You always thought you were so smart, Graham. So superior. But look at you now. Broke. Alone. Under investigation. Nobody believes you. Nobody cares. You're nothing. I stared at the words, the venom in them, the hatred. This wasn't just about money. This was revenge. Carol had spent 2.5 years systematically destroying my life because she believed I'd destroyed hers first, and Stephen Palmer had helped her do it. Raymond and I looked at each other. This is enough to go to the police, Raymond said. We need to call Detective Anderson. Over the next 2 weeks, Amanda became my spy in Carol's world. She visited her mother 2, sometimes 3 times a week. Normal daughter visits, bringing groceries, having coffee, sitting at the kitchen table, talking. Except now, every visit, Amanda wore a digital voice recorder hidden in her jacket pocket. The first recording came through on a Tuesday night. I sat at my kitchen table with Raymond, my phone on speaker between us. Amanda's voice, first nervous, but trying to sound casual. So how are things going, Mom? Carol's laugh, cold, triumphant. Oh, Amanda, things are going perfectly. Graham's pension got suspended. Did you hear he'll be homeless in a month, and they're repossessing his truck next week? The stupid man doesn't even know how to fight back. That's... wow. Amanda's voice was carefully neutral. He destroyed my life for 27 years. Made me feel small. Made me feel worthless. Now he knows how it feels. The recording ended. I sat there staring at the phone. Hearing Carol's voice after 5 years, the venom in it, the satisfaction made my stomach turn. That's admissible, Raymond said quietly. Keep going. The second recording came 3 days later. This one was worse. Carol's voice. I need you to sign something for me. What is it? Another loan application. You'll be listed as a witness, just like before. A pause. I could picture Amanda's face, trying to look scared, but compliant. Mom, I don't know if I should keep doing this. What if Dad finds out? What if the police? The police think Graham did this himself. Carol's voice was sharp. And if you stop helping me now, I'll tell them you were involved from the beginning. You signed documents, Amanda. You're already guilty. The only way forward is to keep going. Okay. Okay, I'll sign. Papers rustling, a pen scratching. Good girl. See, that wasn't so hard. But then Carol's voice changed. Suspicious. You've been asking a lot of questions lately. About the properties, about Stephen. Why? My heart stopped. Had she figured it out, Amanda's response was perfect. I'm just worried, Mom. If this all falls apart, I could go to jail. I need to know what's happening. A long silence. Then Carol sighed. You're just like your father, always worrying, always questioning. But fine. Stephen's been helping me invest the money, real estate. We've bought 3 properties so far. Once this blows over, once Graham's in prison or dead or whatever, Stephen and I will sell them and disappear. Maybe Costa Rica, somewhere with no extradition. And what about me? What about you? You'll be fine. Just keep your mouth shut. The recording ended. Raymond looked at me. She's planning to run. And leave Amanda to take the fall. Yeah. Over the next 2 weeks, Amanda sent me 6 recordings total. Each one was damning. Carol admitting to the fraud. Carol discussing Stephen's role, how he'd provided his name for property purchases, how he'd helped launder the money through real estate investments. Carol bragging about bleeding Graham dry and making him suffer the way he made me suffer. In one recording, Carol described the poisoning plan. The pills were perfect, just enough to keep him confused, forgetful. Made him look unstable when the police questioned him. Made sure nobody would believe anything he said. Amanda also sent photos. Loan applications with forged signatures, my signature practiced and nearly perfect. Bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts. Text messages between Carol and Stephen discussing property purchases, discussing timeline for leaving the country, discussing how much longer they needed to milk this thing. One text from Stephen to Carol stood out. How much more can we get before this falls apart? The lake house alone was $612,000. We're sitting on over $1 million now. Maybe time to cash out. Carol's response. Not yet. I want him completely destroyed first. Broke homeless in prison if possible. Then we disappear. Raymond and I organized everything into a single folder. My blood test results showing benzodiazepines, proof of 18 months of poisoning. Amanda's 6 recordings, each one cataloged with date and time. The photographs of forged documents. Carol's threatening text messages to me, the ones where she admitted to destroying my life deliberately. Stephen Palmer's property records, showing 3 properties totaling over $1 million, all purchased in cash within the time frame of the fraudulent loans. This is enough, Raymond said one night, spreading the printouts across my kitchen table. This is more than enough to get them both arrested. When do we go to Detective Anderson? Soon, but let's make sure we have everything first. Once we turn this over, there's no going back. They'll move fast, arrests, seizures, the whole thing. We need to be absolutely certain we haven't missed anything. I nodded. My hands were shaking slightly as I looked at the evidence spread before us. 2 weeks of Amanda risking everything. 2 weeks of careful documentation. 2 weeks of building an airtight case against the woman who'd tried to destroy me. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I'd gotten 3 more threatening texts from Carol that week, each one more vicious than the last, but something made me pick up. Mr. Sterling. A man's voice. Older, hesitant. Yes. This is Pastor Kenneth Lawrence from Crossroads Community Church. I need to speak with you about Carol Bennett. It's urgent. I sat up straighter. What about her? I'd rather discuss this in person. Are you available tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock at my office? Yes, I'll be there. Thank you. And Mr. Sterling, please don't mention this call to anyone, especially not Carol. What I have to tell you, it's complicated, and it involves the church. He hung up. I stared at the phone. Raymond was watching me, eyebrows raised. Who was that? A pastor from Carol's church. Kenneth Lawrence. He wants to meet tomorrow morning, says it's urgent, says it's about Carol and it involves the church. What does that mean? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Text from Amanda. Dad, I just recorded this. Mom said something about, those idiots at Crossroads will never know. What does that mean? Should I be worried? The next morning at 8 o'clock, I arrived at Crossroads Community Church. Pastor Kenneth Lawrence was waiting for me at his office door. He was in his early 60s, gray-haired, with the kind of weathered face that came from decades of listening to other people's problems. But today he looked older, exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. Mr. Sterling, thank you for coming. He shook my hand, gestured me inside. Please sit down. His office was small, cluttered with theological books and framed photographs of church events, baptisms, Christmas pageants, mission trips. On his desk sat a stack of folders, bank statements, visible on top yellow sticky notes marking specific pages. He sat across from me, folded his hands on the desk. They were shaking slightly. I don't know how to say this gently, so I'll just say it. He took a breath. Our church treasurer discovered a discrepancy in our accounts last week. $84,600 missing from our building fund. Over the past 3 years. The number hit me like a punch to the gut. $84,600. Almost exactly what Carol had stolen from me. Almost the exact same amount. Carol Bennett was our fundraising coordinator. He continued, his voice heavy. She had access to donor records, names, addresses, phone numbers, financial information. People trusted her with their personal details because she was helping organize our capital campaign. We were trying to build a new community center. He laughed bitterly. Turns out we were funding Carol's new life instead. How did she do it? He opened one of the folders, pulled out documents with trembling hands. Credit card applications. 4 of them. Different banks, different dates, but all recent. These were submitted in the names of 4 elderly members of our congregation. He slid them across the desk, one by one. Dorothy Walsh, 78 years old. Robert Martinez, 81. Margaret Flores, 76. James Peterson, 83. I picked up the first application. Dorothy Walsh. The signature looked shaky, elderly, authentic, but I'd seen enough of Carol's forgeries by now to recognize the subtle tells, the way the letters connected, the pressure of the pen, the slight hesitation in certain strokes. Carol helped these people, Pastor Lawrence said quietly. When Dorothy's husband died 2 years ago, Carol was there. She organized meals, helped with funeral arrangements, paid bills when Dorothy was too grief-stricken to function. When Robert had his stroke last year, Carol drove him to physical therapy appointments 3 times a week. She visited Margaret in the hospital after her hip surgery. She brought James groceries every Sunday after church because he can't drive anymore. His voice broke. She was wonderful to them, generous, kind, patient. Everything a Christian should be. And while she was helping them, she was stealing their information. Yes. He looked down at his hands. We discovered credit card debt in their names, purchases. They never made expensive dinners, shopping trips, hotel stays. One of them, Margaret, nearly lost her house because Carol had taken out a second mortgage using her information. Margaret didn't even know until the foreclosure notice came. My stomach turned. This was bigger than I'd thought. Carol hadn't just targeted me. She'd built an entire system of fraud, using the most vulnerable people she could find. Did they know? I asked. Do they know now? Dorothy suspected something was wrong 3 months ago. She came to me, said her credit score had dropped from 700 to 52. Said she was getting collection calls for debts she didn't recognize. Department stores, credit cards, a car loan she never took out. He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. And I told her it must be a mistake. I told her to check with her bank that these things happen to elderly people sometimes. Identity theft is common, I said. He put his face in his hands. I should have investigated then, but I trusted Carol. I believed her when she said Dorothy was just confused that elderly people sometimes forget things or get scammed by phone calls. Carol even offered to help Dorothy sort it out, to go to the bank with her to call the credit card companies. His voice was muffled through his hands. She was so convincing. I knew that feeling, the weight of having trusted someone who'd been destroying you the entire time. Pastor Lawrence, I said quietly. Carol's been stealing from me too. $86,000 in fraudulent loans over 3 years. Forged my signatures on 7 loan applications. Used my social security number, my employment history, everything. I paused. And she used our daughter to poison me for 18 months. Sedatives in my food. Made me confused, forgetful, unable to defend myself when the police questioned me. His head jerked up. Poison, dear God. Benzodiazepines. My doctor found them in my blood. High levels. Consistent dosing over months. I pulled out my phone, showed him the blood test results I'd saved as a photo. Amanda was manipulated into doing it. Carol threatened her, told her she'd go to prison if she didn't help. The same way she manipulated your elderly members. Made them trust her, made them dependent on her, then used that trust to destroy them. Pastor Lawrence stared at the phone screen, then at me. His face had gone completely white. I stood in that pulpit, he whispered. I stood up there and praised Carol Bennett's generosity. I held her up as an example of Christian charity, of selfless service. I told the congregation to be more like her. He stood abruptly, walked to the window, his back to me. And I spoke about you too, Mr. Sterling. Carol told me about her difficult marriage, about her ex-husband who couldn't let go, who was harassing her, who refused to accept that it was over. She cried in this office, right where you're sitting. She asked me to pray for her safety. His shoulders shook. And I did. I prayed for God to protect her from you. I even mentioned it in a sermon once, didn't use names. But I talked about toxic relationships, about the courage it takes to leave, about men who can't accept rejection. The anger I felt was hot but distant. He'd helped destroy my reputation in a community I didn't even know I was part of. But looking at him now, broken and ashamed, I couldn't hate him for it. You didn't know, I said. She's very good at lying. That's no excuse. He turned to face me, his eyes wet. I'm a shepherd. I'm supposed to protect my flock. Instead, I helped a wolf walk right in through the front door. My phone rang. Detective Claire Anderson. I looked at Pastor Lawrence. I need to take this. He nodded, wiping his eyes. I answered. Detective Anderson. Mr. Sterling. Her voice was different than the last time we'd spoken, less skeptical, more urgent, almost apologetic. But new evidence has come to light regarding your case. Can you come to my office this afternoon? Bring your daughter and Mr. Hayes. Bring everything you have. That afternoon at 2 o'clock, Raymond, Amanda, and I walked into the Marion County Sheriff's Office carrying bags full of files and USB drives. Detective Anderson met us at the front desk. Her expression was different than the last time I'd been here. Less suspicious, more focused. She led us down a hallway to a conference room I hadn't seen before, bigger than her office, with a long table and chairs for 8 people. Detective Hughes was already there. So was someone new, a woman in her late 40s wearing a dark suit, her brown hair pulled back in a tight bun. Mr. Sterling, this is Sarah Mitchell. She's an assistant prosecutor with the county. Anderson gestured to the table. Please sit down. Show us what you have. We sat. I set my bag on the table. Raymond did the same. Amanda clutched hers in her lap, her hands shaking. Before we start, I said, I want to be clear. My daughter is here voluntarily. She's cooperating fully. She was manipulated by Carol Bennett and threatened into participating. She's a victim, too. Mitchell nodded. Understood. We'll take that into consideration. Raymond opened his bag, first pulled out organized folders. He'd labeled everything, color-coded them, created a timeline. 30 years as a cop had taught him how to present evidence. Let's start with the financial trail, he said. He spread property records across the table. Stephen Palmer, city councilman, annual salary $65,000. 3 properties purchased in cash over the past 3 years. Total value $1,167,000. Anderson leaned forward, examining the documents. Geist Reservoir Lake House. Raymond continued. $612,000 purchased 2.5 years ago. Brownsburg rental property, $235,000 18 months ago. Anderson, Indiana commercial property, $320,000 2 years ago. All cash purchases. No mortgages, no loans? How does a city councilman afford that? Hughes asked. He doesn't. Carol Bennett does, using stolen identities to take out fraudulent loans. Raymond pulled out bank statements next to the ones Amanda had photographed. These accounts show wire transfers between Carol and Stephen, coordination on property purchases, text messages discussing laundering money through real estate and planning to leave the country once things blow over. I pulled out my own folder. My blood test results. Benzodiazepines. High levels consistent with 18 months of regular dosing. I slid them across. My medical records showing cognitive decline over that period, memory loss, confusion, inability to focus. And then these. I added more recent results. Follow-up tests from 3 weeks ago after I stopped eating food Amanda brought me. Benzodiazepine levels dropping. Cognitive function improving. The poisoning stops and suddenly I can think clearly again. Anderson studied the documents carefully. Mitchell was taking notes. Amanda spoke up, her voice small. I have recordings, 6 of them, of my mother. She pulled out her phone, set it on the table like it was radioactive. Her hands were still shaking. Play them, Anderson said gently. Amanda started with the first recording. Carol's voice filled the room, triumphant and cruel. Graham's pension got suspended. He'll be homeless in a month. The stupid man doesn't even know how to fight back. Then the second recording. Carol admitting to the fraud, discussing Stephen's role. Stephen's been helping me invest the loan money. We're buying properties. Graham will never figure it out. And even if he does, who's going to believe him? With that restraining order, he looks like a crazy ex-husband who can't let go. Anderson's expression hardened. The third recording. Carol threatening Amanda. If you stop helping me now, I'll tell them you were involved from the beginning. You signed documents, Amanda. You're already guilty. Amanda was crying silently now. I put my hand over hers. The fourth recording was the worst. Carol describing the poisoning plan in detail. The pills were perfect, just enough to keep him confused, forgetful, made him look unstable when the police questioned him. Anderson looked at me. I'm sorry. You were doing your job. I should have seen it. The pattern, the way everything lined up too perfectly against you. She shook her head. When I first met you, I thought you were running a con. I thought you and Carol cooked up this scheme together. I was wrong. You're not a criminal. You're a victim. Mitchell spoke up. Based on what I'm seeing here, we have enough for multiple charges. Identity theft, Mr. Sterling and the 4 elderly church members. Wire fraud. Elder abuse. Embezzlement from the church. Criminal conspiracy. Assault with intent to cause bodily harm through poisoning. What about Stephen Palmer? Raymond asked. Money laundering, conspiracy to commit fraud. We'll get him on all of it. Hughes pulled out his phone. I'm calling for a warrant now. We'll pick up Palmer first, he's easier to find. Then Carol. While Hughes stepped out to make the call, Amanda pulled out more photos from her phone. Documents she'd photographed at Carol's house. More loan applications. More forged signatures. Bank statements showing accounts I'd never heard of. There might be more victims we don't know about yet, Amanda said quietly. Mom kept files. I saw names I didn't recognize. Mitchell made a note. We'll go through everything thoroughly. Find everyone she's hurt. Anderson's phone rang. She answered, listened, her expression going tight. When are you sure? She hung up, looked at us. Stephen Palmer's been arrested. 20 minutes ago at his office. News crews are already there. It's going to be all over the evening broadcast. I felt something loosen in my chest. One down. We're moving on Carol tonight, Anderson continued. We'll have officers at her house by 7. With any luck, we'll have her in custody before. Her phone rang again. Different ringtone. She frowned, answered. Anderson. Her expression changed. What? When did she book it, Jesus Christ? She hung up, already standing. Carol just booked a one-way ticket to Costa Rica. Flight leaves at 11 tonight. She knows. She knows Palmer's been arrested, and she's running. Mitchell was on her feet too. We need to move now. Airport immediately. Anderson looked at me. Stay here. Don't leave the building. We'll call you when we have her. They ran out. Hughes followed. Raymond, Amanda, and I sat alone in the conference room, surrounded by evidence. Proof of 3 years of systematic destruction. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You think you've won, Graham. You think arresting Stephen changes anything? I'm gone. You'll never see me again. And you'll spend the rest of your pathetic life knowing I got away with it. I showed Raymond and Amanda. Raymond's jaw tightened. She's not getting away with anything. My phone rang. Anderson. Change of plans. Carol just booked a one-way flight to Costa Rica, 11 p.m. tonight. She knows about Palmer. We're heading to the airport now. I hung up, looked at Raymond and Amanda. She's running. Carol's in custody, but the story isn't over yet. Drop a comment predicting what happens to Amanda in court. Will she get leniency for helping or face full consequences? A heads up, the trial scenes ahead contain dramatized elements. Stop here if you'd rather not hear them. For the next 3 hours, I sat in my house with Raymond and Amanda, waiting for the phone to ring. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? Carol was either going to get away, or she wasn't. Stephen Palmer was already in custody. That much we knew from the news. His face had been plastered across every local channel at 6 o'clock. City councilman arrested in massive fraud scheme. His wife had been photographed leaving their house with the 2 kids, her face hidden behind her hand. But Carol was still out there, and every minute that passed felt like she was getting closer to that plane, closer to disappearing forever. At 9 o'clock, Amanda's phone rang. She looked at the screen, her face going pale. It's Mom. Don't answer it, I said. She let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it went to voicemail. 30 seconds later, her phone buzzed. Voicemail notification. Amanda looked at me. Should I listen? Put it on speaker? Raymond said. She did. Carol's voice came through urgent and strained. Different from the recordings we'd heard, this wasn't triumphant or cruel. This was scared. Amanda, where are you? I've been calling all day. I need you to come to the house right now. We need to talk. Something's happened with Stephen and I. Just come over. Please, it's important. And Amanda, don't talk to your father. Don't tell him anything. Just come to the house." The message ended. Amanda stared at the phone. She knows. She knows Stephen got arrested and she's panicking. "She's trying to secure her assets," Raymond said. "Make sure you're still on her side before she runs." "What do I do?" "Nothing," I said. "You don't call her back. You don't text her. You stay here with us." At 9:45, Carol called again. Amanda didn't answer. Another voicemail. This time, Carol's voice was sharper, angry. "Amanda, I know you're screening my calls. Answer your phone. Now. I'm your mother. You owe me that much. Whatever your father has told you, it's lies. All of it. He's poisoned you against me just like he poisoned our marriage. Call me back, or you'll regret it." The threat was clear. Carol was losing control, and she was lashing out. At 10:30, my phone rang. "Detective Anderson." I answered immediately. "Do you have her?" "We've got officers stationed at every gate. Her flight board's at 10:55. If she's here, we'll get her." "If she hasn't checked in yet, hasn't gone through security, either she's running late or she changed her plans." Anderson's voice was tense. "We're watching for her. Just stay where you are." She hung up. I looked at Raymond and Amanda. They don't have her yet. The minutes crawled by. 10:30, 10:40, 10:50. What if she didn't show? What if she'd figured out they were watching the airport and she'd found another way out, drive to Chicago, fly from there, or just disappear into the country, use cash, stay off the grid? She had $58,000 in offshore accounts that could last a long time if she was careful. At 11:15, my phone rang again. "Anderson. We've got her." I closed my eyes. "Where?" "Gate B7, Indianapolis International Airport." She was trying to board under a fake name, Jennifer Morrison. Fake passport, fake ID, the whole 9 yards. TSA flagged her. We moved in. "Is she in custody?" "She is now. Tried to run when she saw us coming. We had to physically restrain her. She's cuffed and on her way to booking as we speak." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Did she say anything?" "Oh, she had plenty to say." Anderson's voice was dry. "Screamed that you'd set her up, that you'd poisoned your own daughter against her, that this was all you're doing, and we were idiots for believing you. Pretty much confirmed everything we already knew." "What about the offshore account? $58,000 in a Cayman Islands bank. We're seizing it. Along with the 3 properties, her car, everything. She won't have a dime left when we're done." "Good. Mr. Sterling, get some rest. We'll need formal statements tomorrow, but tonight it's over. You're safe. Your daughter's safe. Carol Bennett isn't going anywhere except prison." She hung up. I set the phone down on the table, stared at it. Raymond put his hand on my shoulder. "It's done." But I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel satisfaction or triumph or even anger anymore. I just felt empty, hollowed out. Like the last 3 years, no. The last 32 years had been carved out of me, and all that was left was this shell of a man sitting in a rental house, waiting to figure out what came next. Amanda made a sound, a sob, then another. She collapsed into tears, her whole body shaking. I moved to sit beside her on the couch, and she turned into me, pressing her face against my shoulder, the way she used to when she was little. I remembered her at 6 years old, falling off her bike in the driveway. She'd skinned both knees and come running to me crying. I'd picked her up, held her, told her it was okay. "And Daddy's got you," I'd said. "I won't let you fall." Now, 26 years later, she was crying on my shoulder again. Same position, same trust. But everything else had changed. "Is it over?" Amanda whispered. "Dad, is it really over?" I didn't have an answer for her. Not a good one. "Almost," I said finally. "There's still the trial, and Amanda." I pulled back so I could look at her. "You know you're going to have to testify against her. Against your mother. In court." 3 weeks later, I sat in the gallery at Marion County Court watching Carol's trial begin. I wasn't allowed to testify conflict of interest, the prosecutor said. I was too close to it, too involved. My testimony would be seen as biased. So instead, I sat in the wooden benches behind the prosecution table watching everything unfold from a distance. Amanda sat 3 rows ahead of me with Raymond. Her lawyer had advised her to sit separately from me during the trial. Better optics, he'd said. Show independence. Carol sat at the defense table in a navy blue suit, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older, but her posture was straight, her chin lifted. Even now, even here, she was playing a role. Not guilty. That's what she'd pled. Not guilty to all charges. Her lawyer stood for opening arguments. Alan Brenner, expensive, slick, the kind of attorney who'd defended white-collar criminals before and knew how to spin a narrative. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Brenner began, "what you're about to hear is the story of a woman who suffered through 27 years of emotional abuse. A woman who finally found the courage to leave, only to be systematically destroyed by a vindictive ex-husband who couldn't accept that she'd moved on." I gripped the wooden bench beneath me so hard my knuckles went white. Abuse, I'd saved her life. I'd given her everything. I'd worked 32 years to provide for our family. Carol Bennett made mistakes, Brenner continued. She'll be the first to admit that. But those mistakes came from a place of fear, of desperation, of a woman trying to survive in the shadow of a man who controlled every aspect of her life. Raymond leaned over to me from his seat. "He's going to try to make you the villain." I know. The prosecution's case took 2 days. First up, Pastor Kenneth Lawrence. He walked to the stand slowly, like it hurt him to be there. He testified about the church theft. $84,600 over 3 years. 4 elderly victims. Dorothy Walsh, Robert Martinez, Margaret Flores, James Peterson. "I trusted her," Pastor Lawrence said, his voice breaking. "We all did. She was our fundraising coordinator. She had access to donor information because we believed she was helping us build something good. Instead, she was destroying the most vulnerable members of our congregation." Dorothy Walsh testified next. 78 years old, using a walker, her hands shaking as she gripped the microphone. "Carol helped me after my husband died," she said, tears streaming down her face. "She was so kind. She paid my bills, organized my paperwork. I thought she was a blessing from God." Her voice cracked. "She stole $42,000 from me. My credit score went from 710 to 52. I almost lost my house. The house my husband and I bought 50 years ago." Robert Martinez was 81, recovering from his second stroke. He could barely speak, his words slurred, but his daughter read his statement for him. "Mrs. Bennett drove me to physical therapy 3 times a week. She helped me fill out insurance forms. She made me feel like I wasn't alone." A pause. She used my information to open credit cards to take out loans. $38,000 in debt that I'll never be able to pay off before I die. The jury listened in silence. A few of them were crying. Nicole Reynolds, the notary, testified about stamping documents without verifying identities. "Mrs. Bennett paid me $360 cash per signature. I knew I wasn't supposed to do it, but I needed the money." Stephen Palmer took the stand in an orange jumpsuit, shackles on his wrists and ankles. He'd made a deal testify against Carol, get his sentence reduced from 20 years to 5. Carol approached me 2.5 years ago, he said, not looking at her. She had money from fraudulent loans and needed help laundering it. I provided my name for property purchases. Cash deals, no paper trail. We bought 3 properties totaling over $1 million. And whose idea was this? The prosecutor asked. Carol's. All of it. She planned everything. The loans, the properties, the offshore accounts. I helped her execute it. Carol's lawyer tried to discredit him on cross-examination. You're a convicted felon testifying to save yourself. But the damage was done. Then it was Amanda's turn. My daughter walked to the stand in a gray suit, her face pale. She looked so young, so scared. She was sworn in, sat down, couldn't look at Carol. The prosecutor started gently. Miss Sterling, can you tell the court your relationship to the defendant? She's my mother. Amanda's voice was barely audible. And can you tell the court what your mother asked you to do approximately 18 months ago? Amanda took a breath. She asked me to give my father pills, benzodiazepines, mixed into his food, his coffee. She said it was to keep him confused, to make sure he couldn't fight back when the fraud charges came. And did you do that? Yes. Amanda's voice broke. I did. For 18 months, every time I visited him, I put pills in his food. I watched him eat. I watched him get sicker, more confused. And I hated myself for it. Why did you do it? Because I was scared. I had gambling debts, $50,000. My mother knew. She said she'd pay them off if I helped her. And then once I'd started, she said if I stopped, she'd tell the police I was involved from the beginning. She said I'd go to prison. The prosecutor played all 6 recordings. Amanda's hidden camera audio, Carol's voice clear and damning. Graham will never figure it out. Keep him confused. Amanda's in too deep to back out now. When the recordings finished, the courtroom was silent. Carol's lawyer stood for cross-examination. He was aggressive, pointed. Miss Sterling, you poisoned your own father, correct? Yes. For 18 months, you deliberately gave him drugs that could have killed him. Yes. And now you're here testifying against your mother to save yourself. You betrayed your own mother. Amanda looked up then, met his eyes. Her voice was steady. No. She betrayed this family first. She betrayed everyone who trusted her. I'm here to tell the truth. I felt tears on my face, didn't bother wiping them away. The trial lasted 3 days, closing arguments on the 3rd afternoon. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. At 7 p.m., they came back. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought everyone in the courtroom could hear it. Amanda sat next to me now, gripping my hand so tight it hurt. Raymond sat on my other side, his face grim. Carol stood as the jury filed in. Her face was blank, unreadable. The foreman stood. The foreman looked at the judge. We have reached a verdict. The judge nodded. Please proceed. The courtroom was silent. No one moved. No one breathed. The foreman unfolded a piece of paper, adjusted his glasses, and began to read. In the matter of the state of Indiana versus Carol Marie Bennett on the charge of identity theft, in the 1st degree, we the jury find the defendant guilty. The word hit like a hammer. Guilty. On the charge of wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty. Amanda's hand tightened around mine. On the charge of embezzlement from a charitable organization, we find the defendant guilty. Carol's lawyer put his hand on her shoulder. She shook it off. On the charge of elder abuse, 4 counts, we find the defendant guilty on all counts. Dorothy Walsh, sitting 3 rows behind me, let out a sob. On the charge of criminal conspiracy, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of assault with intent to cause bodily harm, we find the defendant guilty. 6 charges, 6 times guilty. The foreman sat down. Carol stood there frozen, then she turned and looked directly at me. Her eyes were filled with hate, pure, undiluted hate. I looked back at her, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not triumph, not even relief, just emptiness. The judge spoke. The defendant will remain in custody pending sentencing. Sentencing hearing will be held 1 week from today. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Carol was led away in handcuffs. She didn't look back. 1 week later, we returned for sentencing. The courtroom was packed. Media in the back rows, victims in the front. Amanda sat next to me again, her face pale. Carol stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit. No makeup now. Hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked older than 58. The stress of the trial the week in jail had aged her 10 years. The judge reviewed the case, read through the charges, the evidence, the jury's verdict. Then she looked at Carol. Mrs. Bennett, you have been convicted of crimes that span 3 years and victimized at least 8 people that we know of. You stole from the elderly. You stole from your church. You stole from your ex-husband. You manipulated your own daughter into poisoning her father. And when you were caught, you attempted to flee the country. Carol said nothing. The prosecution has recommended 18 years in federal prison. The defense has argued for leniency, citing your lack of prior criminal record and emotional distress from your divorce. I've considered both arguments. She paused. Mrs. Bennett, what you did was calculated, systematic, and cruel. You targeted the most vulnerable people in your community. You weaponized trust. You turned your daughter into an accomplice, and you showed no remorse throughout this trial. None. The judge picked up her gavel. I hereby sentence you to 18 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You will pay restitution to all victims, including Mr. Graham Sterling, the church, and the 4 elderly victims whose identities you stole. Your assets will be liquidated to cover these costs. The 3 properties purchased with stolen funds will be seized and sold. The gavel came down. Carol's face crumpled. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely afraid. This isn't fair, she shouted, suddenly turning toward me. Graham destroyed my life first. He controlled me for 27 years. Mrs. Bennett, that's enough. The judge's voice was sharp. You've had your day in court. The jury has spoken. Officers removed the defendant. 2 deputies moved forward. Carol struggled against them. What? This isn't over, Graham, she screamed as they pulled her toward the door. It's not over. I stood, looked at her one last time. It's over, Carol. No, you think you've won, but... Yes, Carol. It's over. She was dragged through the door. Her voice echoed down the hallway, then faded. Then gone. I sat back down, stared at the empty defense table. 18 years. She'd be 76 when she got out. If she got out. Prison was hard on people her age. Next to me, Amanda was crying. Not loud, dramatic sobs, just quiet tears streaming down her face. Raymond leaned over. You okay? I nodded, but I wasn't sure if that was true. The Stephen Palmer sentencing had been 3 days earlier, 5 years, just like his plea deal promised. He'd be out in 3 with good behavior. Probably go somewhere else after that. Start over. Pretend he'd never been a city councilman who'd helped his girlfriend steal $1 million. But Carol was done. 1 week after that, we were back in court again. This time for Amanda. She stood before a different judge. Younger, a woman in her 40s, with kind eyes. Amanda wore a gray suit. Her hands were shaking. The judge had reviewed Amanda's case carefully, reviewed the evidence that showed Carol's manipulation, the gambling debts, the threats, the recordings where Carol had explicitly told Amanda she was in too deep to back out. "Miss Sterling," the judge said, "you participated in serious crimes. You poisoned your father for 18 months. You signed fraudulent documents. Under normal circumstances, you'd be facing 10 to 15 years. Amanda's lawyer shifted nervously beside her. "However," the judge continued, "the prosecution and I agree that you were coerced, threatened, manipulated by your mother, and most importantly, you cooperated fully with law enforcement. You provided recordings that were critical to this case. Without your testimony, Carol Bennett might not have been convicted." She paused. "I'm sentencing you to 5 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 3 years, if you demonstrate good behavior and complete required counseling. You'll also be required to continue working with authorities if additional victims are discovered." Amanda nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, Your Honor." "Thank you. Miss Sterling, I want you to understand something." The judge's voice was firm but not unkind. "You made terrible choices. You hurt your father deeply. But you also had the courage to stop, to turn against your mother and tell the truth. That takes strength. Don't waste it." "I won't." The gavel came down. Amanda was given 1 week before she had to report to the federal detention center. 1 week to get her affairs in order. Say goodbye to her life as she knew it. We stood on the courthouse steps afterward, the February wind cutting through our coats. Amanda's lawyer had left. Raymond was waiting in the parking lot, giving us space. "I'm so sorry, Dad." Amanda's voice was barely a whisper. "For everything. For all of it." I looked at my daughter. 32 years old, about to spend the next 3 to 5 years in prison because she'd been manipulated by her mother and made choices she couldn't take back. "I'll visit you every month," I said. "I'll write you every week. And when you get out, I'll be waiting. You're still my daughter, Amanda. I'm not giving up on you. 5 years is a long time to wait." But I waited. The first month after Amanda went to prison, my pension was reinstated. $2,880 a month back in my account, like it had never left. The bank settled with me for $45,000 compensation for the fraudulent truck loan and the damage to my credit. The debt on my F-150 was erased. The title returned to my name. I had money again. But it didn't fill the emptiness. I moved out of the rental house, bought a small condo in a better neighborhood, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen, with actual counter space. 1 bedroom for me, 1 for Amanda for when she came home. Raymond helped me move, helped me paint Amanda's room a soft blue, helped me set up the bed I'd bought at a furniture store, the first new furniture I'd owned in a decade. "She's going to need this," Raymond said, tightening the last screw on the bed frame. "A place that feels like home, not like a prison cell." I nodded, unable to speak. For 60 months, 5 full years, I drove 60 miles to the Federal Correctional Institution in Terre Haute every 3rd Sunday. Visiting hours were 1 to 4 p.m. I was always there at 12:50, waiting in the parking lot, first in line. We talked through glass, phones pressed to our ears, 30 minutes at a time. Never enough. Year 1. Amanda was angry, depressed, distant. She blamed me for turning her in, for making her testify against Carol, for putting her in prison. "You could have protected me," she said once, her eyes red from crying. "You could have found another way." I didn't argue, just kept showing up, kept writing letters every week, kept putting money in her commissary account so she could buy better soap stamps books. Year 2. The anger started to fade. Amanda began therapy, mandatory for all inmates, but she actually engaged with it. Started processing what Carol had done to her. Started understanding that she'd been manipulated, yes, but that she'd also made choices. Bad choices. And she had to own them. "I'm learning," she told me through the glass. "About addiction, about enabling, about how Mom turned me into a weapon against you." She paused. "I'm sorry, Dad. I know I've said it before, but I mean it now. I really mean it." Year 3. Amanda enrolled in online courses through the prison education program. Business administration. She wanted to rebuild her life when she got out. Wanted to have a skill that didn't involve pills or casinos or lying. "I'm going to be different when I get out," she said. "Better. Stronger. I promise." Year 4. I watched my daughter transform. The anger was gone, replaced by something quieter. Determination. She'd lost weight, gained muscle from the prison gym. Her hair was shorter, practical. Her eyes were clearer. "Dad, prison broke me," she said during one visit. "It took everything I thought I was and smashed it into pieces. But I'm rebuilding into someone better, someone you can be proud of." "I'm already proud of you," I said, and I meant it. Year 5. The countdown began. 60 months became 48, then 36, then 12. Amanda had been a model prisoner. No infractions, excellent behavior, completed all her therapy and education requirements. Her parole hearing was scheduled for month 58. Raymond came with me that day. We sat in the waiting room while the parole board reviewed Amanda's case. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, a woman in a gray suit came out. "Mr. Sterling, your daughter's parole has been approved. She'll be released in 2 months. Early release for good behavior." I cried. Right there in the waiting room of a federal prison, I broke down and cried. Raymond put his arm around me and let me fall apart. 2 months. 60 days. After 5 years, 60 days felt like nothing and forever at the same time. I went home and prepared. Repainted Amanda's room. She'd mentioned once that she missed the color yellow. Bought new sheets, new pillows, new towels. Put up pictures on the dresser. Amanda as a baby, Amanda at her high school graduation. Amanda and me at her 25th birthday before everything fell apart. I stocked the fridge with her favorite foods: mac and cheese, chocolate ice cream, fresh strawberries, things she couldn't get in prison. I wrote her one last letter before her release date. "Amanda, in 2 weeks you're coming home. I've waited 5 years for this. 60 months. 260 Sundays. Over 300 letters. And I'd do it all again. I want you to know something. When you walk out of those doors, you don't owe me anything. No apologies. No explanations. No promises. You've already paid your debt to me, to society, to everyone. What you owe yourself is a chance. A fresh start. A life worth living. I'll be there when you walk out. And I'll be here in this condo with a room ready and a fridge full of food and a father who loves you. See you soon. Dad." The morning of her release, I woke up at 5 a.m. Couldn't sleep. Too nervous. Too excited. Too terrified that something would go wrong at the last minute. Raymond picked me up at 7. We drove the 60 miles in near silence. Pulled into the prison parking lot at 8:30. Release time wasn't until 9, but I couldn't wait at home. Couldn't risk being late. We sat in the truck heater running against the February cold watching the prison entrance. At 9 o'clock, exactly, the doors opened, and I saw her. Amanda, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt I'd sent her last month, carrying a small plastic bag with her belongings, walking toward freedom. Amanda walked through the prison gates. She was 37 now, thinner than I remembered, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago. But her eyes were clearer, brighter, like something broken inside her had finally been put back together. She stopped when she saw me standing by the truck. For a moment, she just stared like she couldn't quite believe I was real. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said quietly. I opened my arms. "I promised." She ran to me, actually ran. And when she hit me, when her arms wrapped around me, I held her tight. The first time in 5 years I'd been able to hug my daughter without glass between us, without a guard watching, without a timer counting down 30 minutes. She sobbed into my shoulder. I just held her and let her cry. "Welcome home, sweetheart." Raymond drove us back to Indianapolis. Amanda sat in the back seat staring out the window, like she'd forgotten what the outside world looked like. Trees, houses, people walking dogs, normal things, free things. "You okay back there?" Raymond asked. "Yeah." Her voice was small. "It's just a lot." At the condo, I showed her the room I'd prepared. She stood in the doorway, not moving, just looking at the yellow walls, the new bed, the pictures on the dresser. "You kept these." She picked up the photo of her at 6 years old, missing her front teeth. "I kept all of them." She set it down carefully, turned to me. "Dad, I don't deserve this. Any of it." "Yes, you do. I poisoned you. For 18 months. I helped Mom destroy you. And you stopped. You turned against her. You helped put her in prison. You paid your debt, Amanda. All of it." She cried again. Different tears this time. Relief, exhaustion, hope. The next day, I took her to Indiana Dunes, the state park on Lake Michigan, 2 hours north of Indianapolis. We'd gone there when she was little, picnics on the beach, building sandcastles, swimming in the cold water. It was late June now, warm, sunny, the complete opposite of the cold February morning when the detectives had knocked on my door and everything had started falling apart. We walked along the beach, not talking much, just being together, being free. There was an old wooden bench overlooking the water. The same bench where we'd sat 30 years ago when Amanda was 7 and afraid of the waves. I'd held her hand and told her the lake couldn't hurt her if she was brave. We sat there now. The lake stretched out before us, blue and endless. "Dad," Amanda said after a while, "can we ever go back to how things were before all of this?" I thought about that. Really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "We can't go back. What happened happened. We can't undo it or pretend it didn't exist." Her face fell. "But," I continued, "we can build something new, something stronger, something that acknowledges the past but isn't trapped by it." She looked at me. "How?" "By being honest, by forgiving without forgetting, by understanding that family isn't about being perfect, it's about not giving up, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts." Amanda leaned her head against my shoulder, the way she used to when she was 4 years old and would fall asleep after long days at this same beach. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, sweetheart." We sat there as the sun moved across the sky, watched families play in the sand, watched couples walk hand in hand along the shore. Watched the waves roll in constant and patient, the way they'd been rolling in for millions of years. I thought about everything that had brought us here. 27 years of marriage to a woman I thought I knew. 5 years of fighting to survive what she'd done. 5 years of waiting for my daughter to come home. Was it worth it, every second of pain, every moment of doubt, every mile driven to that prison? Yes, every single second. Because family isn't about perfection. It's about love that doesn't quit, love that shows up, love that waits. Carol would be in prison until she was 76 years old. 18 years. She'd lost everything, her freedom, her reputation, every dollar she'd stolen. The properties had been seized and sold. The offshore accounts emptied. She'd die in that prison probably, old and alone and bitter. Stephen Palmer had served his 5 years, got out 8 months ago, moved to Florida, I'd heard, changed his name, started over somewhere no one knew who he was or what he'd done. Amanda had lost 5 years, her 30s, the years when she should have been building a career, finding love, living her life. Instead, she'd been in a cell. But she'd found herself in there, found strength I didn't know she had. And me, I'd lost money, peace, trust, my belief that the world was fundamentally fair. But I'd gotten my daughter back, and that was all that mattered. Dad. Amanda's voice pulled me back to the present. Yeah. Thank you for not giving up on me. Never, I said. Not ever. The sun began to set over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in shades of orange and red and purple. The kind of sunset that makes you believe in second chances, in redemption, in the possibility that broken things can be made whole again. We sat there on that old wooden bench, Amanda's head on my shoulder, and I realized something. We'd survived, not because we were strong, though we were, not because we were lucky, though we'd had moments of luck, but because we didn't quit. We didn't give up on each other even when it would have been easier to walk away. That's what love is. It's not the absence of pain. It's not perfection. It's not fairy tales and happy endings. It's showing up. It's waiting. It's forgiving when forgiveness seems impossible. It's not quitting. Ever. The sun dipped below the horizon. The sky darkened. Stars began to appear. Amanda lifted her head from my shoulder. Ready to go home? I smiled. Yeah, let's go home. We walked back to the truck together, father and daughter, survivors of a war neither of us had asked for, but both of us had won. And as we drove back to Indianapolis, back to the condo with the yellow room waiting for her, back to the life we were going to build together, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the kind of peace that means nothing bad ever happened, but the kind that means you survived the bad things. You came out the other side. You're still standing, and you're not alone. Looking back on everything that happened, I realized the signs were always there. I just chose not to see them. That's my advice to you. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't give someone access to everything, your social security number, your bank accounts, your complete trust, just because you've been married for decades. Love doesn't mean blind faith. It means trust with verification. This family story taught me that the people closest to you can become strangers without you noticing. Carol wasn't born a monster. She became one slowly, choice by choice, resentment by resentment. And I enabled it by being passive, by assuming marriage meant unconditional trust. The dad revenge some people expected. That's not what this was. This wasn't revenge. This was survival. This was protecting my daughter and ensuring justice for the elderly victims Carol destroyed. Real dad revenge isn't destruction. It's rebuilding what was broken and refusing to let evil win. My family story isn't unique. Identity theft, manipulation, financial abuse. These things happen every day, but what made mine survivable was refusing to give up. Raymond showed me that friendship is covenant. Amanda showed me that redemption is possible. And God, who I'd stopped believing in after the divorce, showed me that even in the darkest valley, you're not walking alone. The lesson: protect yourself legally. Document everything. Trust, but verify. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. This dad revenge story wasn't about winning. It was about not letting them make me the villain of my own family story. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Please leave a comment sharing your thoughts. What would you do if you found yourself in Graham's situation? I'd love to hear your perspective. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss future videos. A gentle reminder: while inspired by real-world issues and true crime patterns, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this content isn't to your taste, feel free to explore other videos that might suit you better.